Let's look at Brawling. When a character enters an enemy character's square, the only actions that either of those two characters can take from now on while in the same square is a brawl. So if Scott just moved into Lee's square, as I showed you there, then Scott would start a brawl action. And then every time one of these two characters' action counters are pulled, they have the option of taking a brawl action. There is a list of the brawl actions on the play aid, and they sort of head punch, body punch. You can have a wrestle, which you try and knock them to the ground. You can pick up an object, talk about that in a moment. You can strike them with an object. You can stab them if you have a knife. You can attempt to leave the fight, and you can stand up if you're knocked to the ground. So if Scott's just moved into there, the next thing you do is you determine the initiative. And to determine the initiative, it's basically rolling a six-sided dice and applying some modifiers. If you are lying down, if you're prone, you take one off the dice. If you have a brawl object with you, or you've got a gun or something you can hit someone with, you get +1 to it. You take away the number of wounds you have. So if, for instance, you're carrying a chest wound and you've lost 2 actions, you take 2 off the dice roll. Obviously, it's not great to be wounded in a fight. And finally, you add to it your brawl skill. So if we look at example character here, we've got Tom here. He's got a brawl skill of 2. He will add 2 to his dice. The character initiative can act first. And we have in the game a brawl dice. I can see what I've done with it. And the brawl dice has various symbols: body blow, head blows, head, miss, body, various other actions. It's got knives on there as well if we use knife actions as well. And each action has a different effect. So we have a quick look at the different actions. So you can go for a head punch, and this calls 2 blows. Now blows are like wounds. If I can find where I've done with the counters, here we go. Are like wounds. You place them on a character's wound track, however they're not permanent. And when a character's out of a brawl, every turn one of these will be removed. So even if you make them unconscious, they will slowly regain consciousness. So a head punch causes 2 blows, it's pretty good. A body punch causes 1 blow, that's the most common result, the easiest result to get. A wrestle, both roll a dice and you add their skill, and if the attacker is greater, then they can either knock the opponent to the ground and cause them a blow, make them prone, or knock an object out the opponent's hand. So if they've got a rifle or a knife particularly, it's quite a good option to do. We've got a pick up object action here. So you can pick up an object in the square. So it might be a dropped object, but also any square that has any printed furniture or objects in can be picked up as a brawl object. So if Scott wants to pick up an object and there's something printed in his square, he can do. And he'll pick up a brawl object, brawl counter, such as this, brawl +1, and that will be placed in a character's hands. Obviously, he or she needs to have their hands free for that. Finally on here we have, and I've got a few more, okay, so you can strike with the object if you've got the object in your hand, okay, and the number of fists on the dice equal the blows, and that's pretty good, It causes a few more wounds. Stab if you have a knife, and again on the dice you see we have knife symbols. Oh, wrong dice, where is it? Here. And you can see the knife symbols, instead of causing blows, they actually cause like proper wounds from the wound chip pulls. They're quite useful to have. Leave the fight. You have to have the initiative to leave the fight. So Scott's just entered, he's not going to leave now, but if you had the initiative, you could try and leave the fight. And then what he does is the opponent will roll the brawl dice and apply all the blows to him, so he can then leave the square. So it's a bit of a high risk thing. Really, you need to win to leave the square, and you've got a chance of standing up here as well. So let's look how this will work. So we've got Scott and Lee. Let me just grab their Scott and Lee. So we've got Scott and Lee. Just zoom out a little bit there. We'll just use their character cards just to show you how these counters are placed. And we'll say, for instance, that Scott's moved in, he's got the initiative, he's going to try a head punch. Okay, a head punch causes 2 blows. Now on the dice, there are only 2 head punches, so it's a bit of a high risk strategy, but he's going to try. Okay, and he does roll head. So that means he can apply 2 blow counters to Lee. Okay. which leaves Lee with 2 actions. But when it's Lee gets a chance to attack back. He's going to try. There's no modifiers. There's no penalties for him in this situation. He's going to do. He's going to play it safe and do a body. Okay, which he fails to do. Okay. Next time when it's Lee's turn, we roll for initiative again, and they take actions again. Now, if a character doesn't lead towards the end, at one point, a character will be reduced to no actions available. Okay, or even possibly unconscious. So in this case, Lee has now been reduced to no actions available. Okay, Lee will then drop prone. Been dropped prone, and that's the end of the brawl. Okay, the brawl action. And next time Scott's action counter is pulled, he has a couple of options. He can either just leave when he's next turn. He can just leave and go off and do what he likes, or he could carry on adding more blow counters by basically rolling the dice. And these blow counters, like I said earlier, keep adding on to the unconscious, and they pile up. If you get 6 counters in the unconscious pile, then the character is dead. So say for instance that Scott then leaves, goes off and does things. Every time that Lee's action counter is pulled, he can remove 1 blow counter. So it's going to take him a while for him to recover. So next time his action counter, he's now got 1 action available. So that turn maybe he could stand up or crawl. So he stands up. And then this happens at the end of the turn. They're not in the brawl, so it uses 1 turn to stand up, and at the end of that turn then he could remove another 1. Next turn he has 2 actions, and then he can remove another 1. So you slowly recover from a brawl. The only additional rule I want to add about the brawl is if you don't see them coming. Say for instance, if we just move that down, can you still see that in there? Yeah, you can. So we've got Lee looking out the window. Scott comes in. Okay. Lee doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't react, jumps in from behind. That means for the first action anyway, that Scott gets to roll the dice only, okay, and Lee can't respond. But at the end of that phase, Lee will then turn and they'll be in a brawl proper.